Good afternoon. This is Mike Brakey. I'm an engineering physicist, and this is parts 3 of 5 Black Swan Climate Theory, the NOAA cover up. Now, in part 1, I explained some of the concerns I had about corrupted data that's unusable in its present format with respect to heating degree days. Also discussed my biography in part 1. In part 2, we went into a little discussion of what is heating degree days, cooling degree days, and why is it so important to have accurate based data that has not been corrupted in any way. Now here in part 3, we're going to actually get into some of the information that I had uncovered in my research concerning what's happening in Maine with respect to temperatures in recent years. In today's discussion, part of this is from the presentation I did on TV that I referenced in an earlier section. Um, the question here is, what kind of energy strategy should I use? Because I have to decide what size heating system I am going to use in this lake lodge for the next 25 to possibly 50 years. And so I have to make certain I have something that's adequate. I'm trying to decide between a 4-ton system and a 6-ton system. And so we'll continue with that. Recent things, as I'm trying to decide, do I go small? Do we have global warming and therefore we're going to head towards Boston temperatures or Florida temperatures? Then I can go with the 4-ton heating system in this lodge. If we have global cooling and we're going to be heading more to temperatures that's like in Orono or the Allagash or whatnot, at that point in time it might be wise for me to make the investment to go with a larger heating system and put in the 6-ton. Now here's a case where as I'm trying to make a decision, if I just go by opinions, I see an article that says NASA admits that winters are getting colder, much colder. That was November 18th, 2014. And I've shown the website that that article can be found on. Lewiston Sun Journal recently, February 20th, indicated the old timers still are starting to remember when Penobscot Bay froze over in 1904. And they think 2014-15 is reminding them of those kind of scenarios. But at the same time, February 2nd, as I'm doing my research, I see this article. Last year was the world's hottest in 134 years of record keeping, according to the United Nations. And so we have conflicting information here. Who do I go with? Who do I believe? And it says in the article, the overall warming trend is more important than ranking of individual year. But it goes on to say that 14 of the 15 hottest years have been in this century, which means, well, um, all of them. So at this point in time, if the United Nations is correct, maybe I could get away with a 4-ton heating system in the main lodge, and that would be more than adequate over the winter months. So one of the first things I wonder is, well, this UN head of climate change, is that person a, um, a climate scientist? Is she degreed in engineering, heat transfer, fluid mechanics? Well, I found out no. She's got a BS and an MA in anthropology. She's a Costa Rican diplomat. But she joined the climate change program in 1995 at age 37. Well, that doesn't really give me a lot of comfort, but they still could be right. So maybe she has top people working for her. So I'll go by Reagan's old saying, trust but verify. I'll check local temperature data to see if it agrees with the United Nations. So again, there's New Gloucester in Zone 19, and Lewis and Auburn website has its own raw data, its own heating and cooling degree days from 1893 to 2001, and so I'm able to get that data. And then, as I said, there's numerous websites I can go to get the more recent information, which I did, so I can figure out what's been happening historically. And so when I created a chart to analyze this, and oh, there's 1998, and I remember everyone talking about what a warm year that was, and the chart shows it. It is true. It was quite warm. And here's the average main uses a 30-year average right now, which is 7,100 heating degree days. That's this line here. If I click, you'll see we have it here. So I'm using that as my benchmark. Now, um, if I use that and I ignore cooling degree days, just heating for right now, if I use the 7107, that comes out to about 45.5 degree average. And so at that point in time, I like using 11-year averages instead of 30, so it's a little more responsive to any changes that occur with temperatures. And using 11-year average, it really didn't vary much from the 30-year average, looking at 1989 to 2000 as opposed to 1971 to 2000. So I didn't give up much of anything there. And so I'm using this darker line, that's 11-year average, and when I do, I see it's going up. And the UN head, she came in 1995, and if you look at the data here, well, to me, at least for this 30-year period, it does show global warming, and the 11-year average reflects that also. So then I ask myself, what's happened historically? And as I'm pulling down all that Lewiston Auburn data that goes backwards, I see for zone 19, which is one of the warmer zones, that, well, yeah, it does look like over a period of time here we've been warming for quite a while. And what the old codgers were saying about global cooling, well, if I look at 1904, 1905, well, that's back here. And boy, what a huge drop we saw too. Something occurred. I initially wondering what happened at this point in time that could have led to something like that. This huge drop. And this is a cooling period of time that was quite extended up until maybe 1925, 1926. And I see that the average temperature in 1904 1905 for a year was about 41.2 degrees. Now, if I look at 1918, this was another picture from the same article talking about how cold it was then, and lo and behold, there's 1918. It's as they said, and I see the cold temperatures, and fortunately, we have good data, hardcore data, raw data for that showed us it was cold, not quite as cold as 1904. It was about 4/10 warmer, but it was still almost 4 degrees colder than it is on this line we have here right now. Now, if we look at 1925, I look at that because we had a huge swing back again. Something has occurred in 1903-04 that had a huge dip going from warmer to colder. Then in 1925 something happened that went from colder to warmer. And I mention this, and if you keep these two dates in mind, because we'll be looking at a theory later of what may have happened then, because that may have a profound impact on our future. So at that point in time, if we look from when this event occurred here, this last event in 25-26, we've then essentially had almost between 1926 and 1998, 60, 70-year rise in temperatures. Yes, there was a little dip here, but it's still moving upward. It looks like almost a 70-year cycle, 72 years here. So, if I was going to be buying a house in 1998, or putting a heating system in this lodge in 1998, I would have considered that, yeah, we got global warming going, and I could possibly get away with a 4-ton system. Fortunately or unfortunately, the property was acquired in 2008. And because of that, I had to do some additional research. And as I did, I noticed after 1998, the raw heating degree data has been indicating it's been dropping since. In fact, at this point in time, I'm almost down to the level seen here in this 12-year drop. So maybe it won't continue. Then I added 2014 when it came along, and unfortunately, it's still dropping. It's now dropped below what we saw in the 50s, 54 through 65. Um, that's worrisome. So the question is, we've had a 16-year drop right now. Is this an aberration, or is it going to continue? It will impact my decision on the size of the heating system I'm going to put in this lodge. So at this point in time, it's still a question mark if I go with the 4 tons or the 6 tons. Something else I decided to do. Okay, we've got this downward trend right now, but I've got 3 additional months of data. January, February, March of 2015. What is that information telling me? And I might add that between 2000 and 2014, that 11-year average, I'm requiring 8.2% more uh, 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 fuel because I'm 8.2% cooler on average. As the heating day requirement increases, I need more electricity. So again, I'm still wondering which way I'm going to go. And that concludes part 3 of 5. Uh, we'll start 4 of 5 in the next few moments. Thank you.